going on, everybody? Culturedog Sam Hatch back here with another Blu-ray review. And this time, I'm a little late to the game. I got this thing a while ago from Scream Factory, and I just was so overloaded with work here on the channel that I didn't get a chance to film a review until now. So apologies for the lateness on this, but it was a release from last year from Scream Factory. A 2002 film from Don Coscarelli, Bubba Ho-Tep. Yeah, Bubba Ho-Tep is such a delightful horror mashup film, and I caught it. I was a lucky viewer of one of the original 32 prints that the filmmakers had put out there themselves, and they really did a vintage old school roadshow traveling experience, and it came to Hartford, Connecticut. I happened to see it in a small art house cinema, and after the fact, MGM picked it up for distribution, and Coscarelli even talks about that in some of the extras on this release, that everyone thinks it's an MGM picture or whatever, but this was a true indie. And Bubba Ho-Tep is based on a short story of the same name by Joe R. Lansdale. And I had the pleasure of doing an interview with Lansdale a few years ago because of a Mark Twain H.P. Lovecraft mashup he had done. And he's known as one of the forefathers of the whole modern mashup explosion of Pride and Prejudice versus Zombies, and Abraham Lincoln Vampire Hunter, etc. Largely Seth Grahame-Smith led the charge on that revolution, but Joe R. Lansdale was a guy that was there before that. Did a lot of work for Twilight Zone, etc. And just really cool guy. And Don Coscarelli adapted it into a film with Bruce Campbell of Evil Dead fame portraying Elvis, and in this case Elvis is not dead. In fact, he traded places with another man after kind of getting burnt out on fame and fortune, and then sauntered off into obscurity, and then eventually landed himself in a retirement home. And now he's trapped in the old folks' home with a bunch of other people that he barely has conversations with, and he's suffering from a cancerous penis and other wonderful things like that, and the only interactions he has is with his semi-comatose roommate, who passes away pretty much right away in the film. And Daniel Roebuck has a cool part, a recurring part, as one of the hearse drivers that routinely shows up and picks up dead people from the Dead People Death Factory. And kind of works as like a audience surrogate member, kind of giving commentary on the film, much like the grave diggers from Hamlet, etc. But anyway, so the king is stuck away in this old folks home, and Ossie Davis happens to be there as well, but Ossie Davis is none less than JFK. JFK is alive, and he did get shot, but he's got a packet of sand in his head where the missing brain material exited, so he put some sand in there to replace it. And the coolest thing about the film is that it is loaded with absurdity and humor. And the denizens of this old folks home are a weird breed. There's a thief that steals things from a woman that's in an iron lung, and there's a gentleman that thinks he's the Lone Ranger, etc. So there's this high level of absurdity to the proceedings and the characters. And then the film could have even gone further to milk that, because hey, it's old people being absurd and old people being foolish, so isn't that even funnier? And that's where the film pumps its brakes and goes in reverse. And it's so much about delivering the wackiness and the craziness of the story with dignity. And these characters are essentially all playing it straight. Bruce Campbell obviously mugs it up and does some hammy moments. In particularly, there's an attack with a scarab beetle that was thrown in specifically as a nod to fans of Evil Dead, etc. So there's a lot of that stuff, but I mean, there's so many attempts at writing these characters and portraying them with a dignity that's really cool, and a lot of that is tied in with Brian Tyler's music, which it turns epic and melancholic, and that was really cool, and it was a fun way to make the film something different than a lot of other B horror flicks. So yeah, it is a horror flick, because in this old folks home is this mummified creature that is apparently sucking their souls out of their buttholes. And the concept is that nobody would notice such a thing because of the amount of dead old people coming out of this place in the first place. So it's amongst these guys within the community of old citizens to protect themselves and to take matters in their own hands. So who better to team up than JFK and Elvis? So Ozzie Davis and Bruce Campbell just both knock it out of the park. They're super cool, and it's a simple story. And from the half point on, it's just what are they going to do to protect their friends and protect this home from ancient Egyptian evil. Yeah, Bubba Ho-Tep really delivers on multiple fronts. It's got some cool creature effects. It's got some cool Evil Dead style attack scenes, etc. But then it's got some good acting and just a fun story. I had a blast with it in the movie theater, and of course I had to pick it up on DVD. I got the edition with the little Elvis replica jacket. And DVD was pretty packed in special features itself, which is nice that the Scream Factory one ports those all over. But yeah, if you haven't seen Bubba Ho-Tep, do yourself a favor and check it out. Picture quality of the Blu-ray is good. Like I said, I had the DVD, so it was cool seeing an upgrade. It's a very, very earthy color palette, and tonally the film is pretty drab, so there's not a lot of bright punchy colors going on. It was shot at this facility that was pretty decrepit. So, I mean, the rooms are very dingy, and you can feel the heat almost in these places, in these rooms. And there's some flashback scenes that have a little bit of punch to them, but overall, it's mostly the HD is going to wow in the terms of detail, and like a lot of edge lighting and stuff like that. That's where it really showed up for me. I'm like, whoa, okay, this is a lot sharper than the DVD copy was. So it's one of those things. It's the upgrade to HD quality isn't going to be a selling point in and of itself per se, because the film is not a visual showcase. It just kind of serves the story. Audio was very aggressive. There's the usual DTS HD master audio action in here, and 5.1, of course, and very, very aggressive, especially in terms of Brian Tyler's score, which was great. He did plenty of Marvel movies, etc. But the thing I was thinking about seeing this was Six String Samurai, Lance Mungia's film, which was a similar kind of very indie roadshow genre mashup picture that Brian Tyler did the music for, and I've got the soundtrack for that. Cool stuff. And this is very similar to that. It's a band-driven piece of music and tries to emulate the kind of Elvis vibe, despite the fact that a cheap movie like this could never afford the rights to use any Elvis' songs. But that said, it's cool. It's big, it's large, and yeah, I love, like I said before, how his songs evoke this kind of dignity and this big kind of badass bravado, at the same time being imbued with a sadness. That this is these characters' moonlight years. This is the end of the road for them. So this is a kind of last hurrah, last chance to stand up and be tough, and that's completely in every piece of music in this film. So that largely dominates the surrounds, but other than that, there's some other surround activity during the attacks with the scarab beetle, etc., and the attacks against Bubba Ho-Tep himself. And there were some moments when the audio was cooked a little bit. There's one bit where Bruce Campbell's Elvis has a big yelled diatribe against the mummy in one scene, and it seemed really hot, and it was kind of like a spitty kind of sound to it when I was listening to it on my system. And sure enough, I played it on a couple different TVs, and it sounded that way. So I think that was just baked in to the original audio. Maybe it was just, I'm guessing there was ADR involved or something like that, but it seemed a little distorted from the source material. So that wasn't really a fault of this soundtrack. I think that's just how it sounds. And yeah, really aggressive stuff. So I love the sound of the drums in particular was killer, and having it come from all around you was great. Special features, this thing is a monster, because like I said, it's got a lot of archival stuff and new stuff. New audio commentary with author Joe R. Lansdale, which is what an amazing thing to get. Like I mentioned before, I had a chance to talk with him maybe in 2010, and just such a cool guy. He's got super thick Texas accent, smart as a whip and just so gregarious and just cool to talk to. And the conversation is monitored by Michael Felsher, which is cool because Joe Lansdale is even more interesting when he can bounce off somebody and they can talk to one another. And he loves the film, which is cool. It's always neat when you see an author served by a film adaptation. And he mentions that on numerous occasions, that this was kind of like a writer's dream to have a movie that services your work so much and is such a love letter to the source material. Really fun stuff. There's a new documentary, All Is Well, interview with Don Coscarelli. Don Coscarelli, I swear he's like some sort of vampire because he looks like way too young. It's so weird. Yeah, I mean, he was young when he made Phantasm, obviously, but that was a long, long, long time ago. And he looks just like a friend of mine that's my age. And it's almost like Alex Lifeson from Rush when he looked younger in the 80s when he started wearing suits and everything than he did in the 70s when he was a young kid. Don Coscarelli is clearly undead. But he's just such a fun character, and you could tell he just loves doing what he does. And there's also The King Lives, a new interview with Bruce Campbell, which is very cool because he talks frankly about the failure of the sequel, Bubba Nosferatu, that they were going to make, and about they just couldn't get their act together and see the same vision, etc. So it was really neat seeing a retrospective set of documentary interviews, because I hadn't even thought about how this film is 15 years old now. So that was way cool. And then there was Mummies and Makeup too, an interview with Robert Kurtzman, which was also be cool because I'm always seeing Howard Berger and Greg Nicotero in interviews. I never see Robert Kurtzman in interviews from KNBFX. So that was neat, getting to hang out with him and talking about doing the makeup in the film. Then archival stuff is still just as awesome as it was when it dropped on DVD. Audio commentary from Don Coscarelli and Bruce Campbell. Super cool stuff to listen to. The audio commentary from The King, Bruce Campbell playing Elvis through the entire film, and it's hilarious. It's ostensibly Don Coscarelli called up Elvis Presley and said, "Hey, check out my movie," and from the get-go he's not quite sure what he's going to watch, and then he realizes that it's a movie about him with some other actor playing him, and he references his own movies. Bruce Campbell must have had like an IMDb list in front of him with every Elvis movie, because he's constantly talking about making all these different movies and referencing them and how they tie in to the ideas going on in Bubba Ho-Tep. He pulled it off through the entire film, so that was impressive. There's some deleted scenes with optional commentary from Coscarelli and Campbell. There's the making of Bubba Ho-Tep, To Make a Mummy, Makeup and Effects, Fit for a King, talking about the costuming of Elvis, and Rock Like an Egyptian, featurette about the music of it. And that's cool because it's Coscarelli interviewing Brian Tyler, and I love music documentaries in particular anyways, and that was a treat for sure. Joe R. Lansdale reads from Bubba Ho-Tep was great, and some archival Bruce Campbell interviews, a music video, a theatrical trailer, TV spot, and still gallery. So it's really a fan's cornucopia wish come true, and it's so cool that Scream Factory was able to dig up some newer retrospective, looks back at the film in addition to the original core set of supplements that came out when the film originally dropped. So yeah, Bubba Ho-Tep. If you like Evil Dead stuff, if you like Bruce Campbell stuff like My Name is Bruce, etc., and you like Don Coscarelli stuff, check it out. I mean, it's obviously a lot different than Phantasm, but it's got a cool story, and I like the tone and the tact they took with it. So very cool to have it on Blu-ray. Well, cheers everybody, thanks for hanging out. We'll be back with some more reviews and all sorts of good stuff.